Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Joining a Podcast Network, the pros and cons. My name is Mike Faber. I'm going to be the moderator of this panel. Thank you guys for being here, and happy DragonCon to everybody. And thank you for joining us this late, or if you're on the West Coast, it's almost dinner time, so it's okay. So it's good. We have a great bunch of folks here to talk to everyone. I'm going to go from how I'm seeing it. So we have a strange horse head next to Philip over there. So want to introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Philip D. Keating. I'm from Botched, a D&D podcast, Nook's Tavern, an Animal Crossing podcast, and Almost Daily Discourse, a new podcast that me and my friends started about a week ago.
Okay. And what podcast network are you with?
I am with the Giant Size Team Up Network.
Excellent. Then we have Angela McCain here. Hey, Angela.
Hello, I'm Angela McCain. I am one of the directors of the Nerdsmith Network, and I'm part of several live streams that we do, including Nerdsmith Sings Our Heart Out, which is a karaoke stream on Friday nights that we do for charity, but also lots of TTRPGs and podcasts.
So you're missing out on karaoke tonight, huh?
I am. It would be exactly at this time. The sacrifices I make for DragonCon. I'm so happy to be here.
Karaoke's loss is our gain. Well, thank you for being here. What network are you with?
Nerdsmith.
Nerdsmith. Okay. And then we have Tony. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Mike. Always good to see you. I was a little worried there for a moment. It was a little touch and go, but a pleasure to be here with everyone. My name is Tony P. I host the Tony P. Oddcast and also Almost Daily Discourse with Phil. I'm part of the Giant Size Team Up Network, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. And then we have Catherine. Hey, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Kate Shaw. I am host of the Strange Animals podcast. I also do a little side project called Real Life Cooking, which almost nobody listens to because this is practically the first time I've mentioned it to anybody. So,
okay.
And I'm not on a network at all. So if you want me to leave, I'll leave.
No, this is good. This is good. This is good because, you know,
I'm the voice of dissent.
Exactly. You could be the everyman in this, you know, you could be everyman in this discussion. So it's perfect. And Rob, hey, dude.
Hi there. I am Rob Roberts. I am the editor-in-chief of content with the Voice of Geeks Network. That's vognetwork.com. We're a network of shows about geeky culture and trying to get all the voices out there of all the different geeks around the world heard. My show is called Orange Lounge Radio. It is the longest-running weekly show about games online since 2002, celebrating 18 years live in this last June.
Wow, that's awesome. That is really awesome. I thought I've done this a long time, but you have me beat. You know, I forgot to mention, I host the Earth Station 1 podcast. I also host the Earth Station Who podcast. Original names, you know, it goes together. And then we also do the DragonCon report. Also run the ESO network, which has been around since 2013, and currently we have 23 shows on our network, and we're always looking for more, but you know, we've ebbed through it, and we'll talk about that tonight. And you know, we're going to talk about the good and the bad, because there's a lot of people out there who hear, oh, the first thing I got to do once I get a podcast up is I have to be part of a network. Let's talk about the pros about being part of a network. The way I do my panels, it's pretty round robin. So let's just jump in. What made you guys want to be part of a network when you started podcasting? Were you guys on your own first, or did you do your podcast and automatically join a network? Tony, you want to start that?
Yeah. Funny enough, I didn't want to join a network. I'm a loner, Dottie, a rebel, if you will. And I just didn't like the
ride a red bike.
I do. Oh, if I had the money, I would buy it. And I sincerely didn't like the idea of having to play with other people, having to get some of their thoughts, and I was scared of control and then wanting to change things. And so it was a long, slow process of kind of just meeting people, talking to them, and I finally came around. And I was glad I did it. And the biggest pro is just support. It's people to talk to, sometimes people to gripe to when there's, things going wrong or you're having some issues. And just, again, a support network of ideas, other projects. And it's been great. It's always as much as we think, or some of us think, we don't need anyone's help, it's nice to have a support system.
Okay, what was the straw that pushed you into the network? Because if you were so set against it,
money. The Giant Size Team Up Network wrote me a huge check.
Hold on.
Did they do it in a big check also?
Hold on. What?
That's where all the money went. That's where all the money in our industry went.
I got
that makes so much sense. You're the one.
I had to pay in to join the network. What is this?
Well, yeah, the money had to come from somewhere. I got one of those like chains that said Giant Size Team Up Network that they put over me. It was a big deal, but
how many mattresses did they give you?
Do you sell herbal dietary supplements on your network? What kind of
wow
setup is this?
No, it was I got to know some of the people on the network, and I was like, oh, these are people that are not trying to take my show or anything of that nature. And I just, having talked to some people, having to get to know them, I realized everyone was in a good place. Everyone just wanted to help and work together.
So that's cool. Angela, what about you?
Well, I helped, me and a few of my friends had all been in a D&D group together, and we decided, hey, why don't we do this thing in a more formal way? So we all got together initially to make a show, but the 6 of us decided that we wanted to find some friends and do something smaller. The Nerdsmith Network's pretty small. We've been around for a few years, and a lot of what our network has sort of turned into is focusing a lot on the community aspect, where we have creators that are independently producing their own shows that are part of the network, and then we have what we call network produced shows, which the 6 of us sort of have this little bit of a brainstorm group where we work on stuff together. But our community space on Discord has been a lot of where our network has sort of grown, and we've sort of angled a little bit more into the community side of things, but a lot of it came about because we were looking to live stream and produce podcasts together, and then we just ended up building a little bit of a very, very tiny reputation among some people, and people came on with their own ideas, and we're learning as we grow.
Well, it makes sense because you guys do a lot of gaming and D&D stuff.
Yeah, we do a lot of TTRPG. We've started since quarantine. We've expanded to a couple of different genres beyond that, but
sure.
But that was where we started.
Okay. What about Philip? Because you didn't get the big welcoming wagon when you joined the network, huh?
Well, it probably had to do with the way that our opening meeting with the network went, which was kind of outrageous, but we won't get into that. No, we were approached by the Giant Size Team Up about 6 months after being in production. And like Tony said, we were very hesitant about what this actually means, what this means for the show. And I wasn't really willing to give up creative control of my show. So that was a big concern of me, for them to come in and either, say you got to run these ads or run this or do this. So I was really concerned and kind of did a little bit of research on who they were and what they were offering us. And after a little bit of time, we agreed to it, but it's been good, right? I mean, with any kind of partnership or relationship, there's struggles and things that we have to grow through and get through as a group. But all in all, it's been great. We joined, I believe it was around June, and by that August, September, we were in the lineup for DragonCon. So, joining that network, it allowed us to open up opportunities and doors that we maybe wouldn't had open if we didn't have the networking behind it.
Okay. Rob, what about you?
So my answer for this is a little funky because since I've been doing my show since 2002, the network culture is all I've ever known. Because back in my day, before there was even podcasting, the way we got our show out on the internet was that we used a service, and I don't even know if they're still around. If they are, they're in a completely different form. But we used a service called Live 365. And that was basically a fancy form of Shoutcast. For those of you that have been around the internet for a while, you know that Shoutcast was a 24/7 audio network that does still exist. And so I say that because if we wanted to do a live show every Sunday night, we had a Live 365 network where our live show was the centerpiece of that network. And we just played music from video games and the types of games that we played all day long throughout the week, because Live 365 took care of the ASCAP fees and all that stuff at the time. So from that, we started finding that as our show was growing, we had other listeners on the network who kind of wanted to do their own thing. And since there's 3 hosts on the show, we started to kind of drift in a situation of, I want to do a spinoff show. I want to do a spinoff show. So it kind of started to become a network, even though the network was the show, if that's yeah. But anyway, in around 2005, 2006, the music licensing and the music rights owners really started to dig in and wanting more money, and the Live 365 thing got a little too much to maintain. So we actually joined an existing network at that time to help us mitigate the cost. And that's right when podcasting was starting to take off too, as iTunes, as you know, added podcasting in 2006, and that's when things really took off. So it's kind of interesting because the network culture is all I've ever known in my time doing it.
No, that's awesome. We were kind of something very similar when we started our network. I had done my podcast for about 2 years at that point, and we talked about all types of geeky stuff on the network and everything. And people started writing us saying, hey, you're talking a little too much about Doctor Who on your podcast. We'd like to hear you talk about other things and everything. So we basically spun off our podcast into Earth Station Who, and we then started having other podcasts start approaching us about, hey, if you have 2 shows, would you want to possibly start a network and do this, and so we, within the thought of doing a network, within 3 weeks we had 5 shows already on our network, and it just went from there. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea how long we'd be doing this for, and 8.5 years later we're still doing it. And
I'm laughing. I'm sorry. I'm laughing over here because you're talking about how that's your history, and I'm laughing because that comment and that result happened to me 2 weeks ago.
Really?
we were talking too much about Animal Crossing on the show, so somebody was like, "You need to do an Animal Crossing." Right?
Oh my God!
Right?
How could you? Yeah.
What else do people play in quarantine? But anyway,
it's called a zeitgeist. It's gonna last for a little while, and then we'll stop.
I'm just laughing because you talk about it's your history, and I'm like, it's kind of my present.
That's pretty awesome, though, because it does happen quite a bit. That's how shows do spinoffs and everything a lot of the ways. But it's, for me, before I started ESO, I had a really bad experience with another network that wanted to bring us on board. There was a network that was out of California that basically wined and dined us, and they flew us out to San Diego Comic-Con. They had us, sit at their booth, meet with them. They paid for our hotel, everything. And this network was trying to go up against Nerdist at the time. And this was back, because this is 2012 at the time, and Nerdist was the big boy on the block with geeky stuff. And so they were trying to get us on board. They didn't tell us till the last night we were there that if we signed with their network, they would own the rights to our show. And they would also basically, they would own all the content, all the material, all the history, because by that point we had almost 100 shows under our belt at the time. And so we basically were like, yeah, no, because they basically said they could fire us if, they didn't, if it didn't work out, but they could keep the show going with new hosts. And it's just like, no, this is my baby. They weren't going to pay what it was and everything. So I'm not going to name names or anything of networks, and they are still around, but I would just recommend, being very careful when you're looking at a network. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes, because like I said, we'll talk about the highs and lows. Be careful, because you want to keep control of your show. I think Philip, you basically said that also, that was one of your hesitations about getting onto a network.
No, of course. There's nothing worse than putting a lot of hard work, time, effort into back catalogs, and then you end up losing them. That's pretty standard in the music industry, right? A lot of these musicians don't own any of their past recordings. And, this is a show that I've created from scratch. It's my baby. And the last thing I want to do is have somebody else, flash all these lights and all these promises, and then the next thing I know, I have no creative control over anything.
Exactly. And that's the straw for it.
It's pretty standard for some of these bigger bigger networks to do that. For example, Brian Posehn, the stand-up comedian, had a D&D show on Earwolf. It was called Nerd Poker. It was fun, but it finally came to a close, and they wanted to keep going, but Earwolf owned their entire catalog. So they tucked it behind a paywall, and then when they wanted to start a new thing, they had to start as indies and figure a way to regain not only the heart of the show, the characters on the show, but also, the feel of everything. So it's just, stories out there. Is just read your fine print and then do a little research on what kind of network you're gonna join.
Exactly. That's one of the big warning signs is no matter what, it could be a small network, it could be a huge network. Just find out what your rights are as a podcaster. And it's your show. And there's a lot of pluses. Let's hop into that. Because like you've mentioned, there's, you guys, some of you, when you joined the network, you guys were able to have guidance. You guys were able to have, some people even had mentors and such when you join a network, because you're talking to other podcasters who might have taken it from a different angle and such. And you could definitely hear from stories and such, and also, be able to learn, get better equipment, get better, layout, get better exposure. You're on more shows, if as part of the network, your promo most of the time is going to be somewhere tied into some of these other shows. Somebody who might not ever listen to you is one of the main things with it. What do you guys, please jump in.
You mentioned something just a second ago about other assets, and everybody has different skills. Everybody is slightly different. And so I've learned a lot from, people on my network, but also just other podcasters and other streamers and friends of mine, watching what they do. And I don't know, I won't speak for anyone else, but I steal and copy everything that I see and I like. I'm like, oh, I love that. And I'll tell them like, oh, I really love how you did that. I'm going to steal that. Or I'm notorious for, what equipment is that? Wait, you have what? Oh, I want it now. I'm like like a jealous little kid, but it really does help. And I'll learn. Heck, one of the panels today, I was learning about some editing software. I was like, wait, I don't use that. You guys are using that? Let's talk about it. I want to hear about it. Why is it different? And again, I always go back to that support system. It's just nice to have.
There's no two podcasts to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Every podcast is different. Everyone comes from it from a different experience. And that's what makes podcasting so amazing, is you could constantly be learning. I've been doing this for 12, 13 years now. I'm constantly learning. I think I was sitting in on the same panel watching it and, finding out new ways. Oh, I should be using that editing tool, or I should be, maybe using this to, get my podcast out there more, and you're going to be learning that type of stuff from people on your network. And that's the great part about it.
Yeah. The biggest thing that one of the biggest assets that we've had has been our sort of community of creators that we basically turned it into a giant digital commune where everybody's, throwing ideas out at each other, or more importantly, this idea of not operating in a vacuum. If you actually have that sort of relationship with your fellow creators on the network, you can really feed off of each other's energy. You can really, look for, as Tony, you'd said, the support system idea, having those moments where, you're burned out or you don't quite know where to take something, and you can go to that group of people and say, hey, I either need to vent a little bit with people that understand what I'm going through, or how do you work out of this? And there are going to be people that are at different phases of their work and might be able to share their advice with you. And so that idea of not just being in a little box by yourself working on something really, I think, can give you more sustainability on your show.
I I firmly believe, and for me, the pros of a network is that together we are stronger. And I remember an era in podcasting when there would be certain types of shows that would come out and, they thought it would be cool to like bash on other podcasts or play pranks on other podcasts. And I've never been about that life. And I think that stuff is kind of cheap and it loses its effectiveness and its thrill really fast. Luckily, we don't see as much of that anymore, but I think together we can help each other, not just the resources. You guys have spoken very strongly to the resource end of it, so I won't repeat that, but also just like the audience. I know that when we did have to leave Live 365 behind and we went to a new network for the first time, there was this very interesting marriage of our audience and the existing audience for that particular network that got to kind of mingle and know each other because we coexisted in the same chat room at the time, which now is just like a Discord server or what have you. And that really helped all of our shows be stronger because our audience was getting stronger. We were getting more voices out there. And, just having the other host, if you need a guest that maybe knows something more on a topic than you do, or something along those lines, it's great to have like an embedded network of people to pull from.
Here's a question for Kate.
Yeah.
Why did you never join a network?
When I first started podcasting, I really wanted to. And then I got used to doing it on my own. I like the total control. And then I was actually approached by a network. And I won't name them. I don't know if they even actually got off the ground. They were starting a new network. They emailed me and said, hey, we think you'd fit in really well. Would you be interested? And so we emailed back and forth a little bit. And I come from a writing background, and I asked for a contract. And they said, well, we don't have a contract. It's just, everything's word of mouth. And I said, well, good luck. I'm not interested because I had already decided at that point that I didn't want ads on my show. And they were saying, well, you have control over the ads. You only have to put them here. You speak them yourself. And I'm like, yeah, you say that now, but without a contract, there's no way to determine whether a year from now that's still going to be the case. So, and they also seemed a little flighty. So they were brand new at this. I don't even know if any of them were really podcasters. I think they were just kind of excited about an idea. So yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea of being on a network. I think it has a lot of bonuses. But like I said, I really like doing things on my own. I have complete control. It's awesome. On the other hand, I also don't have a lot of support. So there's always that. There's drawbacks.
Of course. That's a good question, actually, to everyone. Does your network use contracts at all for your members?
Let me jump in because I did kind of want to respond to that a little bit. And I'll be very honest, we don't use contracts, but I think a key difference that I heard in Kate's story there was talk about ads and there was talk about money. And I think when those things come into play, you are going to have to go into using contracts and those sorts of things. And we're very transparent in that we are a hobbyist network. If you are wanting to network with us to make money, we're probably not your first choice. But I think another very important thing that you said in there, Kate, that's so important to anybody looking, like, do we want to join a network? Do we not want to join a network? Is trust your gut. You said that your gut said,
exactly,
don't do it. Yeah. You made a smart decision listening to your gut in that particular case. But I did want to also kind of just present that there is that counter side, that there are some shows and some people out there making content that might actually be scared of the converse. They don't want to sign a contract because it's just my fun thing. It's my Saturday night project. I don't want to take it that seriously. This contract thing kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to do it. And so, our network exists for people like that. And there's plenty of others as well. I'm not here to just sell my network. And then there for people that are looking for ad money or formalization, there's plenty of networks that use contracts as well.
Sure.
Rob, I'm sorry. Did I just hear Mr. Smush?
No, you're probably hearing my cats because they're in and out, and I'm trying not to look down and say, "What a guy."
I'm sorry. I did not mean to mix up your cats with Mr. Smush. I apologize.
That's okay. I want to see Mr. Smush.
We all do.
Let's just go to Instagram.com/Mr. Mister Smush. Thank you for that plug.
There you go. That's
the
awesome.
kind of teamwork that you can get in a
That's what you can get in a
All
network
coming
right there. Exactly. See, we just implemented a contract for being part of the ESO network about a year ago. And what we did though is it's very informal and it's basically non-binding. Basically, you could leave the network whenever you want. It's pretty much when you're doing part of ESO, you basically have to run an opening bumper and a closing bumper and then maybe a promo for another show. That's pretty much what we ask for all our shows. And that's part of what's being in the contract, doing every 30 days, putting out a show or letting us know what's going on, just consistency. And that's what we ask for. We actually had like 6 of our shows leave the network because they didn't want to sign the contract. And everything. They didn't feel right about it. And we don't have any ill feelings or anything about it, but it was just interesting about that. Angela, you guys do also.
Yeah, we started, called them agreements, because people were afraid of the word contract, and we were trying to express
exactly.
all that our contracts were saying were, same with ESO. We had bumpers to put on, and we were in an attempt to do sort of subscriber based, a bit of a Max Fun model. We had our podcasts create bonus content that would be available for subscribers, and they'd only have to produce it once a year. It's just we needed something there to show subscribers that there was value in the network as a whole. So there were a couple of things like that in there. It also asked that we get 10 days notice if you want to leave so that we can actually break stuff down, because we also ran we currently still run website space for any show that comes on the network, and there's just a lot of wheels that have to turn to keep
of course,
our cast of creators updated on the site. So we asked just a couple, there's some check boxes that have to be done to offload somebody. So yeah, we started with a contract. It's been fine-tuned significantly over the last few years, just through trial and error. We
of course
found we had to formalize it even more than we had, partly because we had people come on that just didn't do anything. And then
you get that a lot.
Yeah, the relationship between what the network provides to creators and what the creators do for the network, that give and take has definitely been where a lot of our growth and development has been. Just figuring out, why would someone want to join us, and what are we giving them in return, and what are we getting out of that relationship as well?
Of course,
it could just be a group of friends doing cool stuff, or hobbyists, like Robin said. But then there's also the that sort of business side. Do you want to make like a living off of it, or you want to at least have a little bit of money to be able to provide something to your creators on your network?
Right. And that's the great thing about a contract. It, like what Kate said, would protect her also, to know what she's getting involved with.
What she does not have to do.
Exactly. It just spells it out a little bit more, just formalizes things. And, Tony and Phil, you guys are both part of the same network. Did you guys have one?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. When I was brought on, I didn't sign anything. But I know that now, now that we have established and brought on new shows, yes, those are now established under contractual work. But I remember when we were brought on 4 or 5 years ago. No, there wasn't. There was talks of it, but then, we kind of just slid by, I guess.
Well, guess what's going to be on your desk tomorrow?
A pink slip for a new network, I guess.
I think the conversation has always been like, hey, we really should formalize these contracts. It's like, yeah. And then we don't. As of now, I think a lot of it really is just our word. And the biggest part, and I could be mistaken, but I think the biggest part is just ethics. Like, don't represent the network and say anything off the wall and crazy. And, I'm looking at Botch there. Phil Keating and the Botch crew may need to sign that contract, but a lot of it's an unspoken ethical contract. Like, just don't be a complete and utter a-hole, for lack of a better term.
Of course.
Well, it's true, because you're representing the network that you're on, right? So yes, I am Botch, a D&D podcast, but when you Google us, it still has that GSTU that pops up right with it, because that's our network. And yes, you have to put on the face of not only your own show, but also the network that allowed you to do your live shows or allowed you to network with those people. So it is completely, Tony.
Well, here's a question we actually got from the audience, from Mural Goblin. Any stories or experiences on leaving a pod network or transferring?
Stories of people leaving our network.
Yeah. Was it a positive thing, or was it, how did it go?
We have had enough turnover as a young network and people figuring out what they want out of a relationship that we've had a mix of them. We've definitely had positives and maybe not so great ones. A lot of times it came from, we had new people that came on that had never done a show before or didn't know what they wanted and thought they might have wanted a network and decided later that they didn't. They had either aspirations to have their own independent brand for a show. They wanted to start their own Patreon. They wanted, they got approached by bigger fish. That happens sometimes. We're proud to be stepping stones for a couple of shows that have done pretty well for themselves.
We have too. It's pretty awesome. It's
just we're super happy for them. Wish they were still there, but in the end of the day, a show's got to do what a show needs. So
I always like going, I knew them when they were with me once.
We got them their first start.
Exactly. I remember when they were a baby podcaster.
But yeah, a lot of it is growing with the a lot of our focus had been on people that maybe weren't going to get plucked up by networks because they hadn't established completely and they wanted to learn more. So we were trying to kind of create a bit of a community of people starting at the amateur level wanting to kind of bump themselves up. So people talking to each other about tech and all that. And so we had people that once they kind of got their footing or sort of understood what they wanted, they either wanted to seek a very specific relationship with the network or they kind of just wanted to cut and run. And it happens. It's very common for people to decide to not hang out.
I'll tell a very candid story about why I left my last network. And this is something our listeners have probably been wondering for a long time. So I'm going to be very candid about it if any of them are out there. So what happened is that basically you kind of have to trust when you're going to network with people and you have an agreement that if you're the person that's kind of like running the network or you are able to kind of wield that clout that other people kind of helped buy into, you've got to make sure that that clout is used for like good purposes that are going to benefit the network. And what happened in this circumstance that started to be kind of the first card that fell in the house of cards, shall we say, and I want to again stress, I harbor no ill will towards, my former network. I think the people over there were great and everything. But the thing that kind of started us thinking, do we really want to do this anymore, was when we had a big trade show that we wanted to go to. And if you're a gamer, the big trade show everybody was going to in the mid-2000s. And you have to have a certain amount of clout in order to be able to get into that trade show. And what we found out had happened is that the person that kind of was able to wield the clout for the network ended up using it to get a family member in. And that would have been fine if the family member had used that for the network's benefit. That would have been totally fine. If it had been a host for the network or something, even if it wasn't me that couldn't go, you know what? I'm a big boy. Sometimes the answer is no. But if somebody from one of the other gaming shows had went, then fine. That would have been fine. But that's not what happened in this case. And to be fair, it could have been a miscommunication. It could have been a lot of things. But perception is everything. And remember that if you're going to lead a group of people, perception is everything. And what we perceived was that our show's ratings was being used for somebody else to go to a big industry trade event. And then it was kind of like turn right around a few months later and ask us to support this Kickstarter. Now you want to go to our audience and ask for their money. Oh. We were out within a week. So, and again, yeah. I know it sounds really bad and you got, because you guys are having this reacting, but there are a lot of good things that happen as well. And it's just, these were the specific circumstances where we were like, you know what, maybe we want to try doing things our own way.
I go back to what Kate alluded to and what you pointed out, Rob, is you got to trust your gut. And if you and like you said, there's it's perception, maybe this, maybe that, but if you just don't feel good about it and something just doesn't feel right, you have to trust that. You just really do. That's probably my one biggest takeaway, from this entire conversation. And that's why I eventually did join the network. I was like, my gut is telling me something good, so I'll go with it. But yeah, I'm going to reiterate it again. Trust your gut. And in that case, it sounds like maybe you got out of a bad situation.
Well, and it was just one of those, our gut said that this was no longer good for us. I do want to say the network is still out there and they're doing fine for themselves. And so that's, again, why I don't want to but just sometimes things happen and that perception is going to lead, your people to want to do something else. And I think that's an important lesson for anyone wanting to start their own network.
It's much like a romantic relationship, hopefully it's like you said, it's not ugly. You're not fighting, but sometimes it's people aren't meant to be, and you go your separate ways.
Yeah.
We, over the years, we've had probably over 60 shows on ESO that have just left or dissolved or gone on to bigger and better things. There's no hard feelings against any of them. Maybe the guys who just decided not to do their show and forget to tell us, maybe them, but no. But other than that, it wasn't so bad. But yeah, it's, what about, with revenue and such, with being part of a network, do you guys find it financially, how do you want to say it, valuable to be part of the network?
I mean,
Silence comes over us.
Well,
ever
we know
since
Tony
that
has
first
all the
big
money,
check,
so no.
Yeah, the big check was good, but since then it's been kind of slack. So, we need to renegotiate the contract. No, I do not get a financial gain by being on the network, but I do think it's an exposure gain, so it's exposure gain. And so that's what helps me. And I have no problem saying I don't make my content for the money. I will take the money. I will take any bit of the money that anyone wants to give me. But fortunately, that's not my initial goal. So I get way more out of it. Man, I hate saying nice things about people that are in the call, but I get way more out of it than just monetary gain.
I think that's a very good point, because I mentioned earlier that we're not really looking at finance as the number one either. But I will say, thanks to kind of challenging some of the ways we'd always been doing things, meaning we had always been doing things on Shoutcast and audio only. But about a year and a half ago, we made the switch over to Twitch, which did allow us very easy ways to integrate monetization that kind of worked for us, that kind of aligned with, this is the way we're willing to ask our audience for money. And we're not making money, but I'm not losing money anymore, because Bobby was paying for the website. My business partner was paying for the website. I was paying for the Shoutcast stream. Now, thankfully, with the incoming money we're getting from Twitch, it's not a lot, but it's paying for us to be even Steven, and I am totally good with that.
Being financially neutral is a nice place to be.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It took us 4 years to get that point.
Yeah, you take it for granted until you get there. You're like, oh, this is actually kind of nice.
You start realizing, I'm not just pumping money into this. Okay.
Are you guys, any of you guys, doing Patreon, or how are you guys doing that?
I am. Yeah.
Patreon.
Yeah.
We don't. But that's
we're doing Patreon, and it's better than we thought it would be. And it's, as a reward, we give, like, for our network people, we do bonus episodes for the network, and we also do, like, our main podcast, Earth Station 1, Earth Station 2, and the DragonCon report. We give our patrons 48 hours access before it goes out to the public and everything.
That always surprised me how enticing that actually is. Early access is actually something that a lot of people are very interested in. For some reason, my brain did not compute that being a thing. I'm like, oh, it's due. Yeah, it's got to go up in an hour. Like, I've never gotten to that point of, I'll just get it out early.
Exactly. I didn't either. And then it was a friend told me about it. And it was just like, wow, you got it 48 hours. And, people are, like, excited to do it. It's pretty awesome.
Even though we're not on Patreon, we did a similar paywall type of thing, if you will, with Twitch. And so what it is that, we've been audio podcasts, and that's still kind of like our bread and butter. And so we still put that out for free, as we've always done. But what the new thing is that you can either watch us do our show live, or if you want to watch the video on demand, you can use, your Twitch Prime subscription, or subscribe, to the feed to get the bonus video content. And I think a very, very important thing there is that we added something new and asked for money. We didn't take anything away.
Yeah.
And we
That totally
reiterated
makes
that
sense.
a million times. We're not taking anything away. And I think our audience was super good with that.
We had to emphasize that a bit when we first started the Patreon, that our regular listeners would not be missing out on anything, except it's additional stuff that you could do there. Like, we now have an exclusive podcast that's only for our Patreons people and stuff that we put out once a month, but it's just a little bit of a bonus as a thank you for our patrons.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of iterations of trying to figure out what was most valuable for the shows, and as both a director and a creator on the network, we were poised to understand how much or how little benefit was actually being sent to the creators. And we went through a few iterations of realizing, this style of monetizing things, asking for subscriptions, the way we're doing this right now, they're making like sense, and it doesn't make sense for them to be using this. And so
we're not buying a jet or a yacht because of the Patreon or something.
No. And so we've done sort of a shifting of what that focus is. A lot of and Rob, you were saying that, like, kind of going back into the black a little financially was a huge deal, because our biggest assets were running our website. And we found that sponsorships is actually one of the biggest ways that we've actually been able to provide things for our creators that sponsor. Our network basically works as a middleman to sponsorship for a lot of people, where they're willing to make a deal with our network, knowing that we have lots of shows, and then our creators get the benefit of that sponsorship by virtue of being on the network. That's a huge thing that we market to people joining Nerdsmith is we have a dice company that we work with. We have we were working with a professional dungeon master website, and they were offering money to the network for us to do stuff, or dice giveaways. That's a big. Giveaways are amazing. Being able to give your creators things that they can give to their audience is so great, and it barely costs the sponsor anything to do that.
Hey, Angela, I'll send you a message later.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you a message later, but that sounds like a pretty good network. That's like a sweet deal.
No, you're under contract, Tony. You can't do that. You're under contract.
The sponsorship thing has been very big for us too, in a slightly different way, is that we have found a really great use of the extra money that we do have is sponsoring small and medium-sized conventions in order to get a table or something there to staff, with people on our network. And then it gets the word out about shows on so it's like maybe a couple people from our network are there staffing the table, but you're getting the word out about all the shows on the network. And that's been a great, I think, investment for us.
That was going to be our investment this year.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the one reason we might actually be in the black this year.
Not going. Yeah, we were going to go
twice as much next year.
We were going to go to WonderCon in Anaheim. That was like our big trip, and then everything exploded. So it's fine. We just downsized our plans for the year. It's okay.
Our network was going to be doing a fan table here at DragonCon this year, but that went out the window.
But yeah, absolutely. That idea of that idiom gets thrown around a lot, like everybody rises together kind of thing. I don't remember how the idiom goes, but yeah, that idea of marketing the people that can show up to those sort of events, helping to pull a little bit of weight for everybody, being like, well, no, I'm representing the whole network. Here's all the shows we have on the network. One of our biggest things when we were prepping for our table that didn't happen was we were asking any of the volunteers that were coming from our creator group to become well versed, if you weren't already, in a different show that wasn't yours, so that you could pitch it to people and you could talk to people, because we were all taking a show so that we could be the person that somebody talked to if they wanted to know about it, and we could geek out about it and get people excited because we listened to it and we knew about it. So everybody sharing a little bit of the load, especially in our case, we're a very small network where people can have that slightly more personal connection with each other to be able to be that like sort of evangelist for your show. We try a lot of that sort of like sharing the load of pitching each other.
And like that's one of the things we say is there's so many networks out there right now. Find your niche, find your people, find the people you get along with. You know, it doesn't have to be my network. It doesn't have to be Tony's network or Angela's. There's networks out there, you know, that, you know, you're going to find a kinship with. And the next question I have for you guys, actually, did you find your numbers go up when you joined the network for your show?
I don't think I that factors in for me, since I've never not been in it.
Yeah, you were the network.
So I mean,
yes, I'm the same way. So
yes, in the sense of them giving me opportunities to go out and do DragonCon. And another thing that the network helped and guided us through was we changed RSS feeds. You know, once we changed that RSS feed from where we started on SoundCloud to Anchor, yeah, I mean, once we made that switch over, which took a while, but it worked. Not only did it bring in new ad revenue from Anchor itself, but also a pop-up in listens, because the way that iTunes worked, the algorithm worked is it looked like we were a new show because we switched RSS feeds. So then it threw us to the top of new and noteworthy, and we already had 200 episodes under our belt. So then people would see us there, and then yes, the numbers increased because we were on that landing page.
Tony, what about you guys?
It helped. It's again, it just the message and the words got out to more ears, you know, and that's basically, and with that came an uptick. No, it wasn't like it went from hundreds to millions overnight, you know, because I was on some big new fancy network, but again, it was a very slow uptick of just getting the word out more and getting more exposure. And it came with that. Did we convince Kate? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. Actually,
I'm sorry,
Kate.
I'm just curious.
You know, no, Kate. Any thoughts or questions about being part of a network now that you've heard us talk and everything, and we've been doing our spiel?
I'm not convinced, but if the right network approached me, maybe I'd have to look at the contract.
Of course.
I think that's an okay answer. I'm sorry to talk over you, but it's a totally okay answer. Networks aren't for everybody, and that is okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm doing okay with my Patreon. My hosting is covered. That's the important thing.
That's great. No, that's fabulous.
But I would also just suggest doing a little research, right? Finding shows that are on the networks, and not just going to the main show. Go to these side shows that are part of it and see if you can talk to the hosts. See if you can just get a word and say, hey, I'm thinking about your network. What do you think? How has the network been for you? What has it brought? What strain comes with the network? And just do a little bit of research and reaching out to people. And people are always looking. I know anybody on this panel is, but looking to help out and just try to guide and help everyone, get where they want to be.
That's a great way to put it, actually. Talk to, the shows that have been there new to see what it's like to join the network. Talk to the people who've been there for quite some time. See, what it's done to them, see how they've grown through it. So it's neat to hear all these different opinions and everything. So I think there's a lot of pluses and minuses for it. And it's cool to be able to hear from everyone on this crew tonight that we liked. Most of us had good experiences. There's been some bad experiences, but at the same time, use your common sense about being part of a network, and you'll be successful with it. You're like everyone's been saying, go with your gut. Your gut is going to be the one thing that doesn't lie to you, pretty much. So let's go around. We only have a couple more minutes left, so let's go around and promote our shows and our networks. Phil, you got to go first.
Sure, I am Philip D. Keating, the imaginary nomad himself, on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram with a 1. I'm on Botched, a D&D podcast, which is a comedy D&D show, kind of like Game of Thrones plus South Park, because Game of Thrones, because all your favorite characters will die with no reason. We are doing 2 more panels for DragonCon. We have tomorrow night at 11 p.m. It's us versus Corporate Adventure. We're doing a Blood Feud-esque kind of thing. It's like a family feud, but one team cheats, and then there's Botch Podcast. And then we do it on Sunday night, 10 p.m. is Full Blown Botch Live. I'm also on Nook's Tavern, which is an Animal Crossing podcast, and Almost Daily Discourse, part of the Giant Size Team Up Network.
That is awesome. Kate.
I'm from Strange Animals Podcast. I almost forgot the name of my own podcast. You can find me at strangeanimalspodcast.blueberry.net or anywhere you get your podcasts. My little side project is called Real Life Cooking. It's kind of boring, but hey, if you need to know how to cook.
It's not boring.
No, it isn't. You enjoy it. There you go.
I do enjoy it. If you need to know how to cook, I walk you through every recipe step by step.
Excellent. That is cool. Tony.
Kate, real quick, what's the strangest animal? I have to know.
Narwhal.
Oh, I do love a narwhal.
Their teeth actually bend. They can bend.
Ooh, that's cool.
Like a lot.
And the B-52 sang about them. So how bad could they be?
Yep.
My name is Tony P. Henderson. You can find me at tonyphenderson.com. I host the Tony P. Oddcast. That is on your podcatchers and also on YouTube. And I'm also a co-host of Almost Daily Discourse with Phil, all part of the Giant Size Team Up Network.
That is awesome. Angela.
So I'm Angela. You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at darling_gypsum. But I am part of the Nerdsmith Network. You can find us at nerdsmith.org or on Twitch or Twitter at We Are Nerdsmith. And because someone took Nerdsmith. Sorry, I'm not bitter. It's only been 3 years. But I host a number of Twitch.
She holds a
shows.
grudge. It's okay.
Yeah, I host a number of Twitch streaming shows. Started out as a podcast, and you can listen to Shenanigoons, which is the D&D show that we just wrapped.
I love it. That's awesome.
We just wrapped our second campaign, which was a Spelljammer game. So it was a fantasy sci-fi game where we had an astral narwhal named Jeremy, and he was wonderful.
Oh,
I named him
that's
a
awesome.
horn cozy, and it was wonderful.
I like how we all tie everything together on the net.
Full circle.
But yeah, so you can check out all of our current content and our vault, which has all of our previous shows and content at nerdsmith.org. So you can find something that maybe is completely done if you like stuff with a finite ending.
That's awesome. Rob, go ahead.
Rob Roberts with the Voice of Geeks Network. That's vognetwork.com, and here on Twitch at VOG Network. And if anything I said during this panel resonated with you, I love to talk about podcasting. Please don't be shy. Reach out. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Rob Roberts, Mr. Rob Roberts. You can email me, rob@vognetwork.com, or I am also here on Twitch personally at Rob Roberts.
Awesome. My name is Mike Faber, of course. You can find me on Twitter at MikeFaber67. I'm part of the ESO network, and you can find us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much anywhere else you can find anyone from. ESO network is always looking for new podcasts, and, it's just been a ton of fun talking to you guys. Just been a blast and everything. If anyone out there needs to get in contact with me, I mentor people on how to podcast. I talk to people about networks. I just, I like talking about podcasts, and I like training people on how to do it. I'll be doing a getting started with digital media, the ups and downs on Sunday, right here on Zoom. So it should be a lot of fun. So until then, thank you, Charles. Thank you, Digital Media Track, for having all of us. It's been a blast. We will see you here next time. Peace.
Oh, Mr. Smush on Instagram. Mr. Smush forever.
Smush.
I'll tell him you said hi.